Hey folks, Mike Dawkins from Worldcast Anglers coming at you with the Jackson Hole fly fishing forecast for the last weekend in May, May 30th and 31st. We hope all of y'all enjoyed a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Classically, as I said last week, Memorial Day has been ridden with snow and rain and cold temperatures, but we had a really nice one. Lots of sunshine, warm daytime temperatures, very comfortable to be spending it outside. So I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day and got to spend it on the water with family, friends, and fishing buddies. The heat and the nice weather is going to continue into this weekend, and it's actually going to be a little hot. Looking into Saturday, we've got 82 and 54, Sunday 80 and 51. But our 10-day forecast, it's looking like we're going to have a big cool down coming here on Monday. The original forecast was we were going to have a lot of precipitation and a lot of cloud cover. That is starting to wane a little bit, but it's looking cloudy, cool, daytime temperatures in the 60s, maybe the high 50s here coming up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. That'll definitely slow down our runoff and get us a little bit more in traditional Rocky Mountain spring weather. As you can see behind me, a lot of our tributaries and creeks that feed a lot of the Teton, the Snake, the South Fork, the Henry's Fork are high. They're off color. The turbidity is up and clarity is off, which means runoff is in full effect right now. And we'll see that extend, especially through the weekend with these really high daytime temperatures, lots of sun, not a lot of wind. We're going to see a lot of our snowpack start ripping out of the mountains here, especially by the end of the weekend. Palisades Reservoir is 78% of capacity. Jackson Lake is 93% of capacity. Those are filling and filling well. We're seeing American Falls below us stay somewhat stagnant, if not flat, as consumptive water users and irrigators start to call for a lot of diversion and consumptive water use below American Falls. So we still should sort of be in this, flatlining area of not really rapid filling in a lot of our reservoirs, as water managers have curbed our discharges to our inflows and that sort of, algorithmic formula that they use to make sure that things don't get too high or too low. The Henry's Fork, sort of the place to be if you're looking for dry fly fishing right now. We've got 479 CFS coming out of the Box Canyon, 1,440 CFS there on the lower river around Ashton. Salmon flies are mostly in the upper river, Riverside, Box Canyon, those areas. And we're starting to see our golden stones emerge on the lower river, as well as some of our lower Sallies and PMDs, as well as your caddis mixed in. So full on, bug bonanza there on the Henry's Fork, especially the lower portion of the river. The foam bite has been okay, and classically those salmon flies and some of those golden stones, they get squashed by some of the crummy weather that we get in the springtime. It's just like a fact of nature and life of where we live. But if I was going up there, I'd be fishing a lot of golden stones. I'd be fishing a lot of droppers, and I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of fishing some of those skinnier water areas with droppers, not something super heavy, especially in the Warm River to Ashton area, as we have start to see a lot of pressure, combined on those lower river sections where the fish have seen a lot of bugs. You're going to have to get creative, get on the water when not everyone is out there, and start to fish some of those different water areas that not everybody has fished that has floated there above you. South Fork of the Snake, we saw those flows come up to 11,000 CFS in the past couple days, 11,300 CFS there on the lower river. It was 8, it was 9, now it's 11. I wouldn't expect it, it wouldn't surprise me to go back down to 9, with this cooler weather, as water managers ride that fine line of consumptive water use to fill in Palisades Reservoir. The South Fork of the Snake, water clarity is still pretty darn good, considering like what you're seeing behind me and runoff being in effect. The upper section has been pretty solid with nymphs and some very sporadic dry fly fishing, rubber legs, San Juan worms, blobs, bullet quills, Spanish bullets, zebra midges. Any of those types of subsurface patterns are going to be productive. Streamer fishing has been a bit on and off, but I would expect that to get better as things cool off and we get some cloudy, overcast days coming up into next week. The canyon section and the lower river have all been fishing pretty darn well for the South Fork for early season fishing here going into the first week of June. The Teton in the Valley, 792 CFS by Driggs, 2,120 CFS there on the lower river. Similarly to what you're going to see on the Snake and some of those other free stones, we've got the Teton in full runoff mode. Water clarity is poor. Fish aren't really going to see your flies much. Maybe if you get a window, if things cool off or you find some clear water, I'd concentrate with streamers in black, purple, those darker shades that are going to provide the best contrast in off-water conditions. Maybe some dry droppers with some larger profiled and darker nymphs can be productive during times of runoff on the Teton. But in honesty, if it were me, I'd probably be fishing the Henry's Fork or the South Fork or some of our local lakes or Yellowstone National Park. Similarly to the Teton, the Snake, we saw those flows come up to 3,040 CFS coming out of Jackson Lake Dam, 13,300 CFS on the lower river near Alpine before the salt and the grays. So if you factor in the salt and the grays, the South Fork is netting, somewhere around 6,000 CFS there in the reservoir as it starts to fill. The Snake is pretty dirty from top to bottom, from Pacific Creek down to the lower river. Your best bets are going to be Dam to Pacific Creek, but 3,000 CFS is a good amount of water in there. It may make it a little bit more challenging. It may provide a little bit more flow in some of those areas that are normally lakey and sloughey. But if you just have to get on the Snake, I would concentrate on Jackson Lake Dam to Pacific Creek. I would throw some streamers in that first quarter of mile where you've got good current and some of those discharge pools, Crelexes, Clouser minnows. Lake trout love anything like of that jig, Clouser styled pattern, sparkle minnows, double bunnies, dungeons, any of that stuff is going to be good in sort of that area. You may find some dry fly fishing with Baetis, leftover caddis, maybe some other bugs, mixed in, there, but I wouldn't really expect much up there this time of year. Yellowstone National Park, we've got the Firehole at 374 CFS, Madison 533 CFS there outside of West Yellowstone. Those are in classic early fishing shape. I would concentrate on, probably with this warm weather, PMDs on the Firehole. Later in the week when it gets cooler, I would look for those BWO emergences, a lot of caddis and some midges. I would look to swing a lot of soft tackles, with an intermediate or a type 3 sinking poly leader, some beadhead buggers, some damselfly nymphs, some big soft tackles. Any of your favorite jig nymphs can do really well this time of year while you're covering water on the Firehole in a down and across swinging style that can be really productive and a lot of fun to sort of change it up from the bobber or the dry dropper. The Madison down there has been fishing well too. I would look for golden stones. I'd fish some dry droppers. You can nymph some of those big holes down there at Barnes and Baker's Hole and swing some streamers and probably pick up some good fish. I'd concentrate on the confluence of the Madison and the Firehole this time of year when there's plenty of water in it. There's always some big fish and a plethora of fish hanging out in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some salmon flies and some golden stones. And then coming into next week, some of the Drake emergences there in Yellowstone National Park. You've also got the Lewis. You also have Lewis Lake. You've got a bunch of stuff, accessible in Yellowstone National Park this time of year that can offer, some good adventures to going and doing something different than maybe the South Fork or the Henry's Fork or the Snake from Jackson Lake Dam down there to Pacific Creek. A lot of our walkway tributaries and DIY stuff on the walkway scale is high off color. I would definitely suggest staying away from those. They can be pretty unstable this time of year. So concentrate on those other options that I was talking about, especially Yellowstone National Park, if you're looking to get out and wade. The WCA Fly Shop, we're open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day of the week. We're going to be going to our summer hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day of the week starting June 1st. So we're here for whatever you need. Stop in, get stocked up if you're heading to the Henry's Fork or the South Fork or anywhere for that matter. If you haven't been in the valley, come in, say hey. We love seeing everybody this time of year. We thank everybody for their support and their business throughout the spring and the summer season. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you here next week.